Chapter 4.4 is solving equations by multiplying or dividing. This is going to be very similar in concept to yesterday. Okay, we are still trying to solve for an unknown variable. The goal is still to get that variable by itself on one side of the equation or the other. And like yesterday, when it was a +6, then we did -6, or if it was a -2, we did a +2. You always do the opposite. We're going to do the same thing today. Okay, we're going to do the opposite operation in order to cancel out the number that's on the left with the variable and get the variable by itself. All right, so if we use this first one as an example, and these will be very quick examples because they're such short problems, okay? So 8y equals 56. You always have to look at what is attached to the y and how is it attached. Okay, yesterday everything was attached by addition and subtraction. So we kind of broke it loose with addition and subtraction. Today, when you have a number and a variable touching, it means multiplication. Okay, it's there, but it's not there. And you're always going to do the opposite to break it loose. Well, it's 8 times y. So that means we're going to use division to break it loose because it's a multiplication problem. And whatever we do to one side, we do to the other. Okay, that's always our rule. And remember, our equal sign is kind of that wall or that balancing scale. So if we divide the left side by 8, we have to divide the right side by 8. Now, when you divide 8 and 8, what do they reduce to? A 1. And that's why they, quote, go away, is because they reduce to a 1. And we know every variable really has a 1 out front. So you don't have to write the 1. You just write the variable by itself. And then we reduce the left side. Now we reduce the right. 56 divided by 8 is 7. And just like yesterday, if you look at the directions, it says solve each equation, check your solution. So we do it the exact same way as we did yesterday. In the equation, the original equation, which I'll just kind of erase this just so we can look at the original equation here. All right, in the original equation, right, we had 8 times y equals 56. Well, we now know that y equals 7. There we go. We now know that y equals 7. So in the equation where there's a y, we're going to plug in the value of 7. So we have 8 times our 7 equals 56. And then 8 times 7 equals 56 equals 56. So it checks out. 56 equals 56. Okay, so work it and then check it. And when you check it, you should get 2 numbers that equal each other. And that checks out that kind of checks off that it's the correct way to do it. Okay. Let's see. Really here, it's just remembering the rules of division and multiplication as far as negatives and positives. So in that first one, we divided 2 positives. We got a positive answer. Okay. If we do number 5 here, we've got 9d equals -9. Again, the 9 and the d are attached with multiplication. So we're going to break it loose with division because we always do the opposite operation. The 9 and 9 cancel out or reduce to 1. I say cancel out. It's kind of lazy math, but. And then on the other side, -9 divided by a +9 is a -1. Okay, now we check it. We take 9 times d. So 9 times -1, because that's what we found to be our d, equals -9. On the left, 9 times -1 is -9. So that one checks out. And again, the whole purpose of catching it is to catch errors. So, and kudos to those that told me that worked, because that's the whole point of checking it. Yeah.
So for this, like, what one would you want to circle? Like d equals -1 or negative?
Yeah. Yeah. If you're going to actually circle your answer, it'd be the solution to your equation. The checking, it's just kind of that little work off to the side showing that, yeah, you got the right answer. You don't necessarily have to put this next one in your notes. I just want to do a few. So we're going to do this number 6 here. Like I said, you don't have to put this one in your notes. I just want to do a few here. So -8f, that's a multiplication. So that means I'm going to divide both sides by a -8. When I do that, my -8 and my -8 go away or cancel out to 1. And anything with a 0 on top stays a 0. And then when we check it, we've got -8 times f, well, we've decided f is 0 equals 0. And on the right, anything multiplied by 0 is also 0, so it checks out. Okay, again, you don't have to put this in your notes. I'm just doing a few different sign combinations. This one is a negative 12h. So I'm going to divide by negative 12. You always divide by exactly your coefficient that's attached to the h. Divide by that coefficient. Divide the other side by that same coefficient. The negative 12s cancel out. And negative 72 divided by a negative 12 is going to give me a positive 6. Good. Check it by taking negative 12 times 6 equals negative 72. Negative 12 times 6 is negative 72. So it checks out. Okay. Are we good there? Yes. Like this? Yeah, you'll have all your homework will look just like this. Now, this is just, I'm just doing examples right now, multiplication. Now I'm going to do some examples of division. Okay, so those were all examples of when you have your original problem is a multiplication problem. Okay, some number times your variable. Well, now we're going to do this, and notice the difference is now we have a variable, and now we've got a division problem kind of wrapped up with our variable. I'll give you a second to get that written down. All right, so like I said, what you notice the difference is we still have a variable on the left. It still is tied up with a number, but in this case, it's tied up in a division problem because fractions are division problems. And just like before, we always break it loose with the opposite operation. So because it is a division problem, we are going to break it loose with multiplication. And I always multiply by my denominator. That's what's going to break this loose, and I'll show you why. And whatever we do to the left, we always do to the right. So we're going to multiply both sides by 4. And the reason this works out is because of cross reducing, because really we don't ever write it, and you don't have to, but really we can write 4 as 4 over 1, right? And if we cross reduce now, our 4 and our 4 cross reduces to 1. So that's why if we multiply by the denominator, we get it to cross reduce and we get it to go to a 1, which is what we wanted because there's always a 1 out in front of a variable. So that in essence gets our variable by itself. And then on the other side, 12 times 4 is 48. And then to check it, where your W is at in the original problem is on the top of a fraction. So we put our W value, which is 48, in the top of the fraction. And then if you punch in your calculator, 48 divided by 4, you do get 12 equals 12. So there's your answer, and there is your checking it. Okay, so if your original problem is multiplication, you divide by the coefficient. If your original problem is division, you multiply by the denominator. Okay, we'll do a couple more of these. I'll do this one. So we've got and it's in a division problem with a -1. So I am going to multiply this side by -1. Then I'm going to multiply this side by -1. My -1 and my -1 cross reduce, leaving me n equals, and then 31, which is positive, times -1 is -31. And then we check it. We do -31 because that's my n. And notice again, right? This is my n, and my n is in the top of the fraction. So I'm going to keep it in the top of the fraction. -1 over 1 equals positive 31. On the left, a negative divided by a negative does go positive. So it checks out. Our signs check out. Everything works. Okay. Let's see. Looking for different sign combinations here. We'll do this one. This will be our last one. Oh, no, let's do the one with a 0 in it. Where is it? I did it earlier today too. Here we go. Let's do this one. N over -8 equals 0. Okay, it's a division problem, which means we're going to multiply. Whatever we do to one side, we're going to do to the other. We always multiply by our denominator, sign and all, right? So we're gonna multiply by -8. We're gonna multiply over here by -8. Again, -8 and -8 cross reduce. That's why the signs and everything have to match. N equals anything times 0 stays 0. And when we check this, we plug our n in the top of the equation. 0 over -8 equals 0. And we know from math rules, anytime you have a 0 on top, it reduces to 0. So n equals 0 checks out. Pretty good. Original problem is multiplication. You do division. Original problem is division. You solve it using multiplication. Whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. Okay. All right. For those of you at home, go ahead, make sure you take notes in your 3-ring binder and click submit and submit, or click load to open it in Kami, submit and submit when you're done, and email me if you have any questions.